Come here, guys. Hildy, come here. Hildy, come here. Mommy wants you to be a star. Come here, Hildy. Okay, come here, guys. Come here. Hildy. Come here, Hildy. Come here. Get your ass over here, dog. Get in the shot. Come here. Come here. There we go. Okay. Hi guys, my name's Andrea. Welcome to my channel. If you're anything like me, this is the season where you're going out to local U-Picks and picking blueberries and strawberries, or you're going to your local grocery store and buying in-season berries from there. And also, if you're anything like me at all, you have a lot of experience watching those berries waste away in the back of your fridge if you don't snack on them fast enough, or being overwhelmed, not knowing anything exciting to do with them, and freezing them in your freezer. So today we're going to try to rectify that situation, and I'm going to show you two projects that you can do with urban picked blackberries. So first we're going to head out, we're going to pick some blackberries at our local park, and then I'm going to show you how to make a blackberry jam and a dairy-free but not vegan oat milk blackberry ice cream. So let's get started. Let's go pick some blackberries. So after we put our beasties away, we got in the car and headed to the park. It was really beautiful outside, so it was super busy, and we weren't the only people picking blackberries. But we ended up being able to find a pretty good spot, and we got all set up. We brought a container to put the blackberries in and some cardboard to help us reach some of the more out-of-the-way places. You can tell from how stained up that piece of cardboard is that this is not my first time out berry picking this summer. So we are in Discovery Park, Fort Lawton in Seattle, Washington, and here we have a ton of blackberry bushes. These are Himalayan blackberries, so they are considered a noxious weed, but they're also really yummy, so a lot of people come out to pick them. We're all finished, and I gotta say we did pretty well. We got a pretty good haul. After spending some time in the park dog watching and enjoying the view of the bay, we headed back towards the car. So we're all set to make some jam. These are the berries that we picked earlier. I've weighed out 1,000 grams. And that is going to be important for the jam that we're going to be making later. As much as possible when you're cooking, I think it's a good idea to try and wean yourself off of recipes. And an easy way to do that is to understand the ratios or the proportions of the ingredients in whatever food you're making. People who might be familiar with this might be people who use baker's percentages to bake bread, because basically if you just fiddle around with your numbers and your baker's percentages, you can make all sorts of different types of loaves and they're gonna taste really good. One thing that I find really helpful if you're trying to make a jam without a recipe is to understand the levels of natural pectin in whatever fruit or berry that you're using. Some fruits and berries have really high natural levels of pectin, some have moderate levels, and some have low levels. It's a good rule of thumb to say that the ones that are more sour or tart are going to have higher levels of pectin. So things like cranberries, lemons, limes, unripe berries and fruits, all of those are going to have higher natural levels of pectin. And this is important because it's going to indicate to you how much sugar you need to add for your jam to set up properly. You need to add less sugar to higher natural pectin fruits and berries. Sugar helps pectin by attracting water molecules away from the pectin molecules so they can gel together. So fruits and berries that have a lower natural pectin content, like strawberries, actually need more sugar in order to help attract away those water molecules and facilitate that gelling process in your jams. For a well-set jam with a high pectin fruit, you're going to want to add 40% of the fruit or berry's weight in sugar. For a jam that you're making with a fruit or berry that has a moderate level of pectin, you're going to want to add 55% of the fruit or berry's weight in sugar. And for a jam that you're making with a low pectin fruit or berry, you're going to want to add 70% of the fruit or berry's weight in sugar. So for ripe blackberries, these have a moderate level of pectin in them, so we're going to be adding 55% of the fruit's weight in sugar. And that's why I weighed it out to be an even 1,000 grams. I am trash at math, and so it makes it really simple for me. 1,000 grams of fruit means I'm going to be adding 550 grams of sugar to it. And then the pectin sort of works a little bit differently. It is going to be something that you may want to fiddle with, because people also have different tastes in terms of how well set they like their jam to be. I like mine a little runnier, but some people like theirs a little firmer. But in addition to the 550 grams of sugar for the blackberries, I am going to be adding a little bit of the powdered pectin, probably about 2 teaspoons of it. For a jam that you're making with a fruit or berry that has a high level of pectin, like lemons, limes, etc., you probably don't need to add any additional pectin for it to set up okay. It has everything it needs already. For jams that you're making with fruits and berries that have moderate levels of pectin, you may or may not need the addition of either store-bought pectin like this, or a little baggie of a high pectin fruit like a lemon or lime. And for jams that you're making with low pectin fruits and berries, you will definitely need to add some sort of additional pectin to it to get it to set up properly. Okay, so first we're going to weigh out our ingredients. As I mentioned earlier, we're using 550 grams of sugar, and you'll notice that I'm using brown sugar here instead of white sugar because we ended up running out. That's totally fine. Brown sugar works. It'll actually give you some more caramely notes because it still has molasses in it, and that can taste really nice and add to the homemade flavor. Next, you're going to mix together your sugar with your blackberries. Alternatively, you can just toss the berries and sugar together and leave them to macerate for a couple of hours. And this approach can preserve the berry structure a little more than what I'm doing here, which is basically just a berry massacre. All right, so now let's put our mixture in a pot on medium heat. We're also going to add our pectin. I ended up using 1.5 teaspoons, and I really like the consistency of the finished jam. Keeping the heat on medium, you're going to stir constantly for the next 10 to 12 minutes or until the sugar in the mixture is totally dissolved. During this time, you can add your citric acid or your lemon to taste. I ended up using about 3/4 of a teaspoon. So right now I am waiting for the jam mixture to come to a simmer. And stirring continuously to kind of facilitate the mixing of the pectin and all of that good stuff. I figured for the video I should have some a deep dive into the history of Himalayan blackberries, just because, you know, sometimes having fun facts about stuff just makes your whole experience more fulfilling. It enriches the learning process. But the stuff that I found out about these berries was really wild. They're originally from Armenia and northern Iran, and they were introduced to the US about 150 years ago. The first article I read, they described the farmer who grew them in California. His name was Luther Burbank. They described him as being kind of like a small-scale farmer, or at least they didn't explain his full persona. The more I read about this guy, I went on a mental journey here. No kidding. This dude, first of all, he was not a poor farmer. He was very good friends with Edison, with Ford, He was extremely wealthy. He helped develop some of the fruits and vegetables that we still eat today, including the predecessor to what is now called the russet potato. He was not a little mom and pop shop, not at all. But anyway, no, he was trying to develop the Himalayan blackberry to be really good in like temperate climates, which clearly it is because it's spread everywhere. And he was trying to develop a blackberry species that wouldn't have thorns. He was a very successful horticulturalist, a very successful farmer, and then the research took a dark turn when it turned out that this guy, like towards the end of his career, started becoming a major proponent and active player in the eugenics movement in the US. So anyway, yeah, no, I was pretty shell-shocked. It just shows you what happens when you look into, I guess, like something as simple as a berry that you live near every day. So while your jam is cooking, you're gonna wanna sterilize your jars and your lids. This is especially important if you're canning something, but it will also extend the shelf life of your jam if you're storing it in the fridge like I am with this batch. Because I'm super scared of my jars breaking and bursting from the temperature of the water, I dip my jars in and out of the boiling water a couple of times to adjust the glass to the temperature before I fully submerge them. You're gonna wanna boil them for at least 10 minutes to fully sterilize. Now fill up your jam jars with a little room at the top, set them aside, and let them cool off and firm up. While I was making these, I was actually thinking that this would be a super cute and pretty cheap wedding favor. Like, I think ours ended up being about $2 a piece, but this would be a great way to go if you have the time. And I gotta say, guys, this stuff turned out so good. Homemade jam, far superior to whatever you can get at the store. Okay, so we're all set to do some ice cream. Like I said earlier, the recipe that we're using is dairy-free. It uses oat milk, but it isn't vegan, so we are using eggs. We reserved about 350 grams of blackberries from what we picked earlier. And yeah, besides that, I would just try to make sure that you're getting the best quality of ingredients that you can, especially the eggs. Getting a high quality egg makes a huge difference in terms of the richness and the texture of your custard base. And honestly, eggs that have been laid by chickens who have lived happy, healthy lives tend to taste a lot yummier than the ones that are depressed and miserable. Dark, but true. Very dark, but true. Tina agrees. She's only fed high quality and happy eggs, and that's what makes her so fluffy. Besides that, make sure the oat milk that you're getting, because again, this is an oat milk ice cream, you want to get the barista blend. Barista blend oat milks have higher fat contents in them that add to the richness and the butteriness of your ice cream. This is a great brand that, again, I'm sure no one can recognize based on the packaging, but it works really well for this recipe. It is expensive, so I'm trying to master how to make my own oat milk at home. Tongue twister. My own oat milk at home, or my own oat milk creamer at home, but that's going to be in a later video where I try that out for everybody. Again, we're going to start out by measuring our ingredients. In a bowl, you're going to mix together 30 grams of cornstarch, 120 grams of cane sugar, and 6 egg yolks. To separate the yolks, I either use the eggshell method or I just wash my hands really well and grab them out with my fingers. Fun fact, by the way, the more viscous the egg white is, the fresher the egg, because the protein chains in the egg whites break down as the eggs age, making old eggs a lot runnier. So I gotta say, and God forgive me for this dad joke, but I've got some pretty fresh eggs on my hands. Now combine the egg yolk mixture together with a whisk until it's pale yellow like this. You're going to heat 32 ounces of oat milk creamer and a pinch of salt on medium heat while stirring constantly until it reaches a temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius. Now we're going to remove our milk mixture from the heat and use it to temper the egg mixture. I use about 3 ladlefuls of the hot oat milk, adding one at a time, and I whisk vigorously in between each. When your egg mixture is tempered, we can add it to the rest of the milk and combine the two together. Put your pot back on the heat and stir constantly until the custard base thickens. Make sure you get your whisk into all the itty-bitty corners so nothing sticks to the bottom. What you're looking for texture-wise is the consistency of melted ice cream. If you're not sure, check to see if it coats the back of a spoon. When the custard base has reached the right thickness, you're going to run it through a sieve. You may notice that this batch got a little thicker than what we were going for. Yeah, filming while cooking is no joke, and hopefully I'm going to get better at it, but we did make a second batch later so I could show you exactly what you're going for. See how this looks like melted ice cream? That is what we want. Now, to be fair, the first batch did turn out great after a couple hours chilling in the freezer, but overnight it ended up freezing pretty hard. Nailing the texture of your ice cream base is the most important part of this recipe, so learn from my first time filming woes and get your mixture off the heat at the right time. Once you've nailed that consistency, you can cool your base off quickly by stirring it in a big bowl of ice before storing it in the fridge with either beeswax wrap or cling film spread right over the surface of the mixture to prevent a skin from forming. I like to chill my base overnight, but just make sure that you get it really cold. Now for prepping your berries. Take 40 grams of clean berries and put them in a saucepan on medium heat. Stir them until the berries have disintegrated, and if you drag your spoon across the bottom of the pan, it leaves a gap for a moment before the berries spread out again. This takes around 10 to 12 minutes. The goal of this process is to cook out as much moisture as you can from the mixture. Too much water in your ice cream base will make it very icy, and that is not a nice texture. I actually prefer to use jam to make berry-flavored ice creams, so feel free to do that if you'd like. I just wanted to make this recipe usable for people who didn't make jam earlier. When your berry mixture has reduced, strain it to remove the seeds and chill it until it's totally cold. I ended up not being able to resist splitting the base and making 2 flavors, and the first one I made was the blackberry. Add your chilled berry mixture to the ice cream base until it tastes just how you like it, and if you use jam, just still add it to taste. Put your mixture in a chilled ice cream bowl that has sat in the freezer for at least 24 hours and let it run until it reaches the consistency of soft serve. This took about 8 to 10 minutes for a half batch, but for a full batch it takes more like 12 to 15. Put your churned ice cream into a freezer-safe Tupperware and freeze it until it's firmed up. Rinse and repeat these steps for your second flavor if you choose to make one. I made one of my favorites, Almond Chocolate. It has this nostalgic flavor that my friend said reminds her of a chocolate pudding she ate as a kid, and I have to say I kind of agree, but let me know what you think. I just add Dutch cocoa powder and almond extract to my ice cream base to taste, and then proceed exactly as I did for the blackberry flavor. This ice cream turned out awesome, and I gotta say, there's something that's so satisfying about eating ice cream that you not only made, but that you made from berries you picked. That's it for this video. I want to give a big shout out to Thrive Market. My oat milk ice cream recipe is basically just a riff off of theirs. So if any of you guys try these projects, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to fiddle with them, play around with them. Ultimately, that's what this is about. It's about building your skills, finding some confidence, and just trying to have a good time. So yeah, until the next video, I have ice cream to eat and I have 3 tiny dogs to put to bed, including myself. I'm not a dog, but I have to go to bed. So have a good night. Bye.